Thank you very much for having me here today and giving me this brief, which could be considered an exercise in futility, trying to predict what will happen in the next 10 to 15 years. But actually, we do that every day, predicting the future. When we recognize patterns, something that we've seen 2, 3, 10, 15 times in our lives, and we know that when we do something, well, something else is about to happen. Or when we see something, something else is about to happen. Well, that's exactly how we will try to achieve this together, to consider what are the patterns, probably longer patterns, patterns over 15 years, 30 years, 80 years, maybe centuries, and how they converge in order to help us define how we can prepare best for the next 10 to 15 years. And to start, a little bit about the digital world, which is linked to my personal history for the last 30 years. Because, well, if we talk about digital, if we talk about the way it has evolved, it actually started 30 years ago, in the beginning of the 90s. The web really is what we talk about when we talk about the digital. And by 1995, there were only less than 3,000 websites in the whole world. You probably have more than that in your own street right now. But by then, that was probably the maximum. And I had created 2 of them already. So I remember very vividly discussing with people, trying to convince them that it was about to change their life, that a new digital era was about to start. And I was hearing someone telling me very convincingly that, well, I already have a computer in the office, you know, with these green screens, and this is a horrible thing. Why on earth would I want to have that at home? Why on earth would I want to go back again in front of such a screen when I could read a book, where I have my TV, I have my friends, I have my family? Why would I do that? And somehow they had a point, but here we are. And then 15 years later, that was the first cycle. The maturity of the digital world was such that the second wave came. And actually, we tried to give it a strange name, which was Web 2.0, for those of you who remember. That was a very bad name. And I was trying to convince people that, you know, in the near future, you will want to go on the website of someone else. For absolutely no reason, you will want to write something on that website. And you will even find it absolutely impossible to resist the urge to upload a photo of your family so that these people can entertain millions of people that you don't even know. And obviously, people were thinking I was completely mad because nobody could envisage, why would I do that? Again, they had a point, but here we are. We just needed to have someone to find a right idea to organize the various technologies that were already there underlying what we now call social media and social platforms. And we just needed to have that to start a real revolution, which we call social media today. Where do I find myself today, 15 years later? Trying to convince people that the third stage is happening. Some people have tried to repeat the error of the first time, calling it Web 3.0, which is a bad name. But most people are calling it the metaverse today, which might also be a bad name. And I'm finding myself in the very same situation, trying to convince people that, you know, in the very near future, you will want to have an avatar online. And you will want to buy for real money clothes for this avatar. And you will want to buy paintings for the house of this avatar. And from time to time, you will want to live the life of your avatar in a virtual environment. And obviously, quite a few people are looking at me and thinking that I'm barking mad. Yet, the pattern is the same. In all of these 3 steps, we had technological investment, business interest, and scientific research, focusing their attention on that. We had all the underlying technology available There is no need to invent anything else. The only thing that is needed is someone or some company to find the right way to organize it, package it, give it a name maybe, and make it appealing to the masses. This is where we are. There is also something else. If you want to prepare to go to the metaverse, how to prepare? What kind of jobs does that mean for freelance? Well, this is again a pattern that we've seen. For the first 15 years, a company only needed a web manager. That's all. Someone in the company who would deal with all their web needs. But now, in the second stage, after maturing of the technology, we've seen an explosion of specialization. Now, if you need to manage a website, you need a cybersecurity specialist, an SEO specialist, a content manager, and all these different specializations that you absolutely need today. Well, this is about to happen for social media. There's still, I guess, a lot of companies where they only have a social media manager. And that's the first stage. Now we are maturing in this platform. And that means that in the next 15 years, we will see an explosion of specialization. You will need very specific roles to manage the social platform of a company. And then for the next step, which is the metaverse, we won't need the specialization first. The only thing that will be needed, as we needed it for the second stage, is a metaverse manager, whatever the name will be, if metaverse is ever the real name that will stay. That was the easy one. The first layer of what the future can be related to the digital platform. But let's go one step deeper. The underlying technology, the computing power, and its evolution in cycles. In order to see the beginning of the computing power, we have to go back to the 40s. So that's a longer cycle. And in the 40s, well, I wasn't born, just so you know. But we learned that we created a first type of computing power. These were these big computers where they would fill an entire room and you would go there in order to get the result of a complex calculation. If I want to compare it with something that would be an image of what it means, it's as if you needed to go to a workshop to get something fixed or done. That's the age of the workshop. The computer was a workshop. It was a place where you have to go. Then 30 years later, a first revolution appeared, and that was the personal computer revolution. That means that from having to go to a workshop, you now had the possibility to have a tool. Let's compare it to a Swiss Army knife, for example. You would have a tool at home where you could actually do things with the computing power that you needed to perform these activities. From the workshop to a tool that you could use in the office or at home. And then 30 years later, we're now in the 2000s, the third revolution of the computing power, mobility, the mobile phone. Now, you don't need to go to a workshop. You don't need to be in front of your computer to perform tasks. You can actually have something that I would call an enhancement. It's not a tool because you don't need your phone to perform specific tools. You need your phone to enhance your capability. I want to compare that to glasses. I wear my glasses in the morning to enhance my vision because I need them. But I could use glasses to see even better than the average person. A mobile phone and the computing power in the mobile phone is exactly the same. You don't have a very specific purpose in mind. You have an enhancement of your capabilities in general that you use all the time. That was in the beginning of the 2000s. If we respect the cycle of 30 years, that means that by 2030 and in the 30s, the next cycle will be mature. What is the next cycle? Again, not inventing anything. Already now people are talking about it. It's artificial intelligence. Why is it the next step? Because it is a complete revolution compared to the very steps that I explained before. The workshops, they still exist. You still have places where you have to go to use huge power places where specific activities are performed, like mining bitcoins, for example. These farms of computers still exist, places, workshops where you have to go. The computer as a tool still exists. The mobile phone will continue to exist as an enhancer. But what will bring the artificial intelligence? It will all be about autonomy. And that is a real revolution. Autonomy means that you are not operating artificial intelligence. And that is a misconception that many people have today. They think that they will now have the ability to operate software or algorithm that will be more efficient, more powerful. But that's not it at all. Obviously, algorithm will continue to evolve and become more powerful, but artificial intelligence will be a fully autonomous part of your work activity. Fully autonomous, and I will use a word that might be a little bit thought-provoking. You will have, as from the moment where artificial intelligence is really mainstream, non-human colleagues. That is what will happen. You will have artificial intelligence performing tasks that you have not asked for, performing tasks in a totally autonomous way, and you will have to interact with these as with colleagues. When you interact with colleagues, you are not asking them to do each of the tasks specifically. You are collaborating, expecting that they will develop their own way of doing things, that they would have full autonomy. Well, that is exactly the purpose of artificial intelligence. And that means that you would have sometimes results from artificial intelligence that you haven't ordered, that you haven't asked for. And if you don't believe me, I can tell you that a few months ago, Amazon has patented something that they call predictive shipping. What that means is that Amazon is preparing a moment where they can ship to you something that you have not ordered, that you might not even know that you need to order. And that's happening. But what does that mean for us freelance? First of all, when you look at all the work that has been necessary to help people collaborate, organize the work between human beings, when you imagine all the work that has been needed and that is still needed to help people perform in a digital environment, you combine the two and you see the immensity of possible jobs that you will have to help the organization reorganize themselves with a part of their workforce being non-human, to help collaborators live and perform in such an environment, and to have also the organization to train people to organize the various activities in such an environment. So there's a lot of work to be done. One last comment, and maybe that's something that is worth thinking about, is although we are freelancers, that means that we work alone in our own company. What would it mean if we have artificial intelligence employees or colleagues in our small group? Does that still make us freelance if we have some artificial intelligence, non-human colleagues? Well, let's think about that. That's also something that might happen. But let's go one step deeper. And actually, this is something that has already been mentioned earlier today, is when we're talking about digital, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens based on technology. It's also based on human beings. It's created by human beings for human beings. And when we talk about humans, we talk about demography. Demography is a cycle that's probably the size of a lifetime, 70, 80 years. And it's very easy to recognize the cycle. We know that in the next 10 years, all the boomers will be past the age of retirement. We know that, a generational issue, and it's been mentioned. We will have a lot of people who will be working late in their life, and we will also have a lot of people who will retire and less people to be able to produce value in the economy. That has a lot of consequences, but one of the most important consequences is that the industry of the silver economy and the healthcare sector will also be booming. And why is it important for the digital world? Because, as I mentioned, there will be a lot of people to take care of. And at the same time, there will not be enough people to do the work. So the only thing that can actually solve this puzzle is digital transmission of the value. And that means that there is a lot of work being done today to create digital services to elderly people, digital services to people late in their working activities. And that is an industry that will completely transform itself in the next 10 to 15 years. One last layer, probably not a very pleasant layer, but when we talk about digital, it's about technology, it's about people, it's also about working in the world with what is happening in the world. And when we talk about that, we talk about cycles that are centuries or millennia. Probably a lot of the people in the audience today have only known in their adult life the last 30 years that have been particularly peaceful. I mean, there's not a lot happening in these last 30 years. I mean, it's been particularly peaceful compared to a lot of centuries before. And if I'm talking to Europe, that is completely not in line with the patterns that we've seen in the last centuries. Today, we have some feeling that this is not the same that is coming in the next 10 to 15 years, that we're probably about to live through times that will be more difficult. Well, life is already today very difficult for quite a few people, but it might become even more difficult. And why is it important in the context where we talk about digital? Is because we've seen one of the most dramatic situations globally in the past few years with the pandemic, where it's been obvious that digital environment was a very important factor in helping us cope with the situation, in helping us freelancers continue to deliver the work. It's also been mentioned earlier today that digital first is absolutely key to continue to work whatever happens in the future, whether we are in a peaceful situation or not in a peaceful situation, whether we are in a complete breakdown of the economy or whether we are in a booming economy, it doesn't matter. Being digital is absolutely key to be able to continue to perform in the future. But that also brings one important lesson that we've learned through the pandemic, is that it's not just working digitally. It's also about building links with other people, communities digitally. That is very important. I mean, communities like the Freelance Business Community or B2B, the community that I'm animating, these are really ways to create bonds between freelance. And we have strong bonds with people that share the same activities, maybe share the same language or live in the same region. And we also have what we call weak ties, which are the ability to bump into people who have completely different background, a completely different way of working, and probably live in a completely different place. These are very important, especially in a time of trouble. So if we are to enter into a period of trouble, we are certainly to prepare ourselves to create, nurture, and animate even more these communities and participate in events like these that are absolutely key to get us through whatever can happen in the future.